in my opinion.
Well, and
Yeah.
the Markopoulos, his speaking at the hearings in the Senate, this last week, he was saying that the SEC was young, inexperienced, uneducated, unable to handle the complexity. What's your take on that? I find that kind of naive on his part. After 10 years of trying to whistleblow from outside the government into the government to get regulation, I mean, that was policy, wasn't it? During those 8 years of Bush policy to not regulate.
Well, yes,
and,
I agree.
I mean, the SEC might have acted dumb, and he fought that,
Well, understand the other side of it is these people were paid to not rock the boat.
The SEC, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that sets up a whole political dynamic on that side.
Yeah, aren't they political appointees, most of them? I mean,
a lot of them.
Sense,
Well,
either. I mean, they can't be fired by the president.
Yes, I understand, but at the top of that stack, there will be appointees. In terms of who gets hired below that, whose agenda are they going to serve?
Yeah, the political appointees at the top.
Yeah.
And that's, what's your take
You're
on
right.
that? Is that a policy to don't regulate, don't rock the boat, don't look too close?
Well, let's look this way. The whole pattern that we've seen over years and years and years about letting industries regulate themselves. That's what's going on there. I mean, this revolving door between Goldman Sachs and the Treasury Department. I mean, they're not even scratching that yet. They're not even dealing with that. They've been doing this whole hush-hush, it's all a matter of psychology, everything will be just fine. It's a liquidity issue. All the bloggers, the decent economic and financial services bloggers have been saying it's an insolvency issue. It's a whole different thing. I don't know the website at this point. Elaine Supkis, who does a website called Culture of Life, she used to do one called Money Matters. She's very, very good on economics. Henry Liu is another one who's very, very good. But anyway, Elaine had this chart one day in terms of how these different organizations have shrunk, Bank of America, Citicorp, and so forth. And Citicorp was like there, and originally, and she had, compared to what it is now, it was bound like that. It was like a pea rolling inside of a watermelon. In terms of how much they've lost. Their idea, the current idea, you probably, if you followed it that much, the idea of unloading all these bad debts onto some particular bank and then letting them deal with it. It's like this concept of a scapegoat. You put all the bad stuff on such and such and send them out in the wilderness and etc. It doesn't deal with the management that continues to control there. I mean, management's been rewarded every inch of the way here. Some of this bailout stuff has been forced on these groups. Either shotgun wedding type things, mergers between different banks or financial stuff. Again, for me, it looks like they're trying to set the casino economics back in motion again. If they can just, restart it. It's a psychology thing. But yet, no jobs, no goods, etc. And people are close to a near panic.
I just wanted to ask you what your thoughts were. Where did all the money, where was it leveraged out of, and where did it go to, like the credit default swap, AIG? Some people made money on those credit default swaps because they, so is all that, some wealth has gone somewhere that's not in that, in the watermelon anymore. Is that in private holding? Is there, individuals who raked in on that? And then the whole thing sounds like everybody was over leveraged. There was,
well, there's that too.
Where did they all borrow from originally? I mean, is that China?
Well, there's two stories in there. One is Japanese carry trade. There's multiple factors in here.
Yeah.
Okay. Japanese carry trade, they were loaning out money at essentially 0% interest for a long time. So people were using that to go out and lend it at a higher value. That got shut down in July of 2007. China operated to shut that down in terms of valuation of the yen versus the yuan, etc. Ended up shutting that down. Understand also, for instance, in Japan, the people level, the population level of the economy there has been suppressed. Corporates are pretty much flat out in control there. I mean, who's paying the cost of all that? The upper echelon is making major money. What's been happening here, they've been using things like Iceland, Bermudas, and so forth, and various other Brit-related island, tax haven type things, to launder that money through into the U.S. So it's a matter of other things. Trade deficit is another big one. I mean, we've been exporting funny money dollars for a whole long time. People are holding that money as reserve currency now because it was set up that you had to have dollars in order to buy oil. You had to have oil in order to run a so-called modern economy. So these got these piles of dollars sitting there somewhere, either on a digital ledger or in an actual vault. Okay, what do you call that in other terms? Other places you would call that hyperinflation, printing too damn much money. So when if that money, I mean, how do you maintain the value of that money? Okay, one way, the obvious way, so you don't lose money in terms of currency exchange situation, you reinvest it back in the economy it came out of. Which means buying up real estate, businesses, anything that's not nailed down, so you're more likely to maintain the value of what you had in there. So you got carry trade, you got trade deficits issues. Again, it's multiple. But they're, again, this enough from the neck up stuff about trying to restart this thing. They're knocking the Federal Reserve interest rate down to near zero, thinking that that will help restart the thing. But, because of the yuan and yen thing, they're not able to restart it there. So they decided they'll do it with the Federal Reserve. One of the first things that Geithner came out with is an attack on China for accusing China of manipulating their currency. Wait a minute, if that's not the pot calling the kettle black, etc. But China was the whole process there, what China was doing by not allowing dollars into their country was to protect their own economy. Because when you allow another currency to come into your economy, the value of your own currency will go down. Okay, it will be worth less. So they were controlling that to preserve their own economy. What these yahoos want to do is export their debt onto China's budget. They want to have all this stuff coming over to us and then cause the yuan to drop out of sight. That's pretty nifty if you can get it. But coming back to your question, yeah, I mean, $50 billion made off from all kinds of Jewish foundations and other notables and so forth across the world via Madoff Inc. There's all sorts of imitators that have been showing up. And there's one guy who's had his own Lear jet that skated out of town. They don't even know where he is at this point. I mean, I don't know if you've ever heard it, but in the last 10 years, I mean, the whole aphorism is greed is good, is the ethic. Well, there it is. I mean, again, that's when you're dealing with economic democracy, you got a more sustainable process in terms of people participating and being understood. I mean, freaking, excuse me, but Mr. Wonderful, the bubble, Greenspan, full face, bold as could possibly be, announcing to the press and the world that increases in labor costs amounted to inflation. That any increase in labor costs is inflation. Wait a minute. What is the bidding up of commodities? Commodities futures. Corn, fuel, whatever. I want to buy this for such and such. No, I want to throw this much. And it goes up and up. What is that other than inflation? Really? And when the value of these stocks go down, lose value, that's buku deflation at one level. And all these people disappear, jobs and so forth. So let's get real. In terms of the real effects, again, again, these people are acting as if the only sector that matters is Wall Street, the U.S. Federal Reserve, et cetera.